I just wanted to make sure, I read everything, and I wanted to make sure I was going under to write the scope, the terminology, the preamble, and the fact that I read the documents that the Judicial Commission staff sent to me. So I wanted to make sure that I state everything that I feel um, and believe and have knowledge of has happened based on the documents and my experience and my observations and various other facts. So let's see. I'm almost there. I did have one observation. I noticed that the last of the Judicial Commission's judicial the the Code of Judicial Conduct. I said, so I kind of had it said that further, one question I feel somebody may be qualified to answer, and it's just it's just a thought, how it reads, and I would like maybe an answer if I could ever get one. Canon 6 and 7 vacated, in brackets, vacated effective March 1st, 1993. Then it says, last thing, compliance with the Code of Judicial Conduct. Vacated effective March 1st, 1993, in brackets. Now that's after that, so anything above that would apply. So does that, to me it reads like the compliance with the Code of Judicial Conduct was vacated effective March 1st, 1993. So I thought that was interesting. Okay. I'm just now reading. Hold on just 1 second. These are my notes. Okay, so I have read where it is not necessary. I state each canon, rule, or code that is allegedly in question and the reason for the report of possible criminal activity. And it concerns issues under the color of law, which is civil. However, it doesn't decide any of that. I understand that. But this concerns people's access and due process to justice and to an impartial and independent judiciary. When it's clear that there's a mill operating from within and is based on various legislative codes that are given via way of notice under the National Mortgage Settlement Act and various HOPE funds and TARP 2 funds, it becomes apparent when you get inside this mill where I'm about to take you. Try to take you verbally, and then I will show you visually with actual exhibits that will be attached. So I'm reading from an outline, but I'm going to also, in the outline I prepared, I'm also going to be recalling things from my experiences and my observations and the fact that I'm witness to it. So let me move on down. I said I have read where it's not necessary. I state each can. Okay. I have an interest, or that on the most universal hierarchy is my property, and certainly property that Carol would have an interest in. I'm talking about my offspring and my offspring's offspring. They've had their identities stolen by some judicial officials and judicial employees and the Richmond Police Department, and they got a big warrant mill going on up here. I got checks from Mears in this file to the county clerk, and from Mears and to Mears, and fake mortgages most recently. A fake mom's mortgage. Now Holtman from Mears has testified that these things don't exist, yet they're existing in a file that was obtained from the Wayne County Courthouse, and it was under the party named Judge Gregory A. Horn. So, let me just start from the beginning chronologically, and this will get real. I'll go very quickly. Rachelle Ditty, Ditty, bought a house from Lingle Real Estate agent Tim Orr. The reported seller was Paul Stickle. He was some kind of a broker real estate agent back in the before 2008 time frame. I think he was involved in approximately, according to my last count, 9,000 transactions in this county. It might have been in the state, but it was 9,000, so it was a significant amount. He had a partner, and I guess she ran Richmond Mortgage Company. She was arrested by the feds, but she's the only one that went to prison, and she may still be there. He did not go to prison, and as a matter of fact, his name was kept quiet. And now I know why his name was kept quiet. He was seemingly protected. So I will get back on task. Rachelle Ditty, young mother, 2 boys, never been married, buys her first home. She's working. She doesn't tell any untruths on any application or to any loan officer at all. She gives them all her information. She's going to buy a house located at 422 Randolph Street. She's going to buy property located at 422 Randolph Street, Richmond, Indiana, from Tim Moore, a legal real estate agent. And the reported real estate agent on that home was Krista Rader, and she has a husband named Josh Rader, and there's advertisements I'll be showing you in the original paperwork that shows those two because they work for you too, and that's going to be significant. 1 home, 1 purchaser, 1 reported owner, seller, 1 real estate for the buyer, and 1 for the seller, and that's it. And she's buying a home. She went in to buy the home, and Tim Moore told her the first purchase agreement / offer was not accepted. So she would have to make another. So she went in and made a second offer. And when she did that, he did not tell her some things. So, okay, so Rachel thought she bought 1 home. And the end offer was accepted reportedly. So she moved into her home. And it was, the mortgage was, she moved into her home. She reportedly closed on March 14th, 2008. So fast forward, she moves in, she was paying 1 person first, and then right away she started paying another entity, U.S. Bank National Association. So in 2012, around August, there was a letter sent to her that they were going to put her in foreclosure. Now she was under a payment plan under either TARP or a federally funded, for unemployed folks, a program. So it wasn't a remod or any kind of paperwork that was ever done with U.S. Bank. She was paying U.S. Bank as her servicer. So, and that's what she was told via some of the documents. So they were foreclosing upon her. Foudy and Foudy were August 15th, 2012. September the 28th, it was filed into Wayne County Court, Superior Court, Circuit Court 2, Judge Gregory Altenhorn's court, a cause, U.S. Bank National Association versus Rachel, RACHELLE Capital One USA National Association. There's commas. There's like anything could be a national association. The way they've got this language stuff going on with these commas. So there's many parties, other parties, but that's who's named. The cause number is 89D02-1209-MF-000343. So she came in and saw me. I was very ill at that time with this debilitating physical disease that I have. So I told her, I said, let me look at your documents. Maybe I can help. And she said, I just, Mom, I don't want to bother you. I said, no, come on, let me look at them. So I got interested right away. I noticed backdating. I noticed that she bought the home reportedly on 3/14/2008. I talked to her about it. And she said, yeah, that's when I bought it. She said, I said, so why did you make out the check for the closing the day before? And she said, well, something came up at the last minute. And then when I got in there, they were in a big hurry. So, I just checked with her back and forth that way with my offspring, with Rachel. And I told her, I said, I need everything. I went over to her house. I had my husband take me over. I went over there. I said, I want everything. I want stuff in your basement, anything to do with this house and these house buying papers. I said, something funny is going on here. So I said the backdating, and I said things aren't just jiving up. And I said this Paul Stickle, you know, he got in trouble for a bunch of fraud, especially it happened to my niece. So the FBI was called in, and my niece and I had been talking, and she said that it was really bad what happened under this Paul Stickle, but he never got in trouble. So I went and got a big bag full of stuff from the location 422 Randolph Street, Lot 154, Richmond, Indiana, and brought it home. And it was a big trash bag, and I put it out on my counter. It's about 6 foot long, and I started going through it, and I came to a white folder, like a accordion folder with a elastic band around it. It said Lingo Real Estate, and I'd seen some writings from Tim Orr, Rachel's real estate agent, as well, stating, "Thank you, Rachel, for buying the house. Please send any referrals my way." Then another writing saying, "Oh, don't bother digging in your papers for anything. Here's your HUD 1 settlement. Use this for your taxes this year in the year 2009. Which is very odd, I believe, because I think that, and what I'm about to tell you is why I think that he would be busy all the time doing that for his clients. So the HUD 1s are supposed to be inside the house buying folders, so that the homeowner can inspect these papers if need be. Well, Rachel got one set of mail from him thanking him, and she thought everything was okay. This other binder, however, she just put away. And now she'll have to swear to that, but that's what I have been told. So, and I got it out of the basement, and there's a letter stating that she doesn't have to dig in her papers. He'll help her with the HUD 1. Tim Orr will help her with the HUD 1. So I opened up this white folder, and inside that folder, here my daughter bought only one house reportedly. She was a purchaser. Inside of that folder were three purchase agreements / offers with international promissory notes in pink and various colors. I can't show you. I can send you actual photocopies, but I want to show you some of the various colors without mixing anything up. Here's one. This one's especially interesting. I'm not sure. I hope that you can see that. But if you'll notice and I'll be sending this to you in a disc, but if you notice there's only 2 copies given, and one of them is not to the purchaser, because this is a behind-the-scenes promissory note, which pledges future contracts based on this. But part of this would be that all parties were in agreement and informed, and if they weren't, then under UCC Article 3, 8, and 9, that would not apply. So that was just part of what I thought when I found this. So let me move forward again, because I want to show you some of the other ones, just to show you the color. Inspection reports that change the terms, and addendums, of course. There's another promissory note. So this is what I call the Tim Orr crook file. He accidentally sent it to Rachel, and he knew it, or he wouldn't have sent her a 2009 HUD 1 settlement. Plus, how I know that is because I called him, because I looked into this file and I thought, wait a minute here. Here's purchase agreements. They read like master mortgages as well. So here's a purchase agreement for January 21st, 2008. There's a second purchase agreement for January 1st, 2008. There's a third purchase agreement for February 5th, 2008. Now, inside the property further was a title commitment. And in that title commitment, it was from Abstract's Title of Richmond. Lingo Real Estate had put in the order. They had 2 properties within that 10 to 11 page fax. It was actually stapled. They had 2 properties inside of that. they had taken an Alta form and backdated the property 422 Randolph Street, lot 154 legal, in the potential buyer's name, which was Rachelle Ditty, D-I-T-T-Y, and making her the premature owner, if you will. And this reported seller actually bought the property and didn't have a right to it. And I have proof of that, where they vested the land rights to this Paul Stickle in 2012. So it gets very interesting. Anyway, so I found 2 properties in that title report. And then inside Lingo Real Estate, their own papers, and let me find this really quickly. And I will supply it to you. I just want you to see it. Nobody ever wants to see these authentic originals that are in color. And I'm going to show you that some of them are double-sided. And these are his crook file. Let's see here. There we go. This is one of them. There's a street address, but of course the 4393, there's the 3rd property. That is 4393 U.S. Highway 35 North here in Richmond, Indiana. There's another property, the other property, the 2 that were included in on the invoice for the title. And I can get that very quickly as well to show you. But I'd rather just include it in on exhibits. But the invoice on title, well, let me just tell you more. There's 9 loans in here with that addendums. It makes 9 loans total, evidently taken out in my daughter's name, in my offspring's name, using her signature is what I'm saying. What's interesting is, and I wanted to show you this. Here's one of them. The one that U.S. Bank's coming in under, and it's 2-sided, as you'll see. That U.S. Bank's coming in under is for the amount of $69,949. But the only loan signed by anyone, and it's the actual ink signature, is, and let me find it because I just got it. Here it is. Here it is. Here it is. It's for, bear with me because I'm not going to show you everything. I do want to show you this though. This one's for $398. Now, it is on page 2, no, page 3, it's of 4, 1 of 4. It is signed in real ink by the loan officer. So this isn't even for the amount they reportedly bought her house for. So this just shows them running those purchase agreements / offers behind the scenes concurrently and not closing them out, and taking this young lady's identity along with some licensed professionals from the state of Indiana. But there's a real and real end to all of this, where it really is going into and what's perpetuating it. So when I opened up that file from Lingo Real Estate in the Lingo binder, there was also 3 sets of pictures for Rachel's house on the inside, but I knew there was 3 properties on the outside. I called up Tim Moore at Lingo Real Estate, and I said it was at midday, and I have the actual date in my notes, and I'll put those down and get more precise with that. I said, do you have a few minutes? He's like, sure. I said, I'm right. I told him I was Rachel's mom. I said, do you have a few minutes? He said, sure. And he said, how's she doing? I said, fine. He goes, how's she enjoying her house? I said, well, they're foreclosing upon her. He goes, oh, I hate to hear that. This is what he told me. And I said, well, the funny thing is, I said, I opened up this folder, and I said, and she bought one house, right? And he goes, yeah. And I said, well, it's funny. I said, this folder from you, I said, states that there's 3 I said it does. I said excuse me, I told Timor. I have notes on what I told him, so I'd be better with just supplying notes. So I have actual notes that I took while I was speaking with him. So I will supply those. But anyway, the gist of it, when he had time to talk, when I told him there was 3 properties, there was backdated Alta policies, there was 9 loans, and I might have told him 5 at that time because I hadn't gotten to the others yet. I called him right away. He said, "Oh my," and I'm quoting, "Oh my FUCKIN." He said, "Oh my fucking God, this is a nightmare. Can I call you back?" And he hung up. So I knew something was going on. I went and took the files, got them in chronological order. I ended up getting them scanned to disk. I called up Title Abstracts of Richmond Incorporated during that time too, and that was in October, around October 14th time frame. And I called them up and told them that there was fraud by their employee. There was backdating in the title policies. It looks like she was reeled into a 3-property scam, and that her signature and identity were used in fraud because I had fake mortgage affidavits stating that she was married and talking about the children. I had backdating in the Alta title policy under TIF, tax increment financing. In the documents, I had 3 separate properties, excuse me, 9 loans with addendums, and 2 TILAs, and there's a way they use these in the bigger mill that they have going on here locally. Let's see, 1 good faith estimate with mixtures of both amounts mixed in, because there were 3 properties. There's also insurance commitments and things like that. One's for $161,000. So there's 3 initial properties. That's the important thing. She thought she bought 1 house, 422 Randolph Street, lot 154. This is going to be important in the future, in a few. And then 10,007 State Route 38, Greens Fork, Indiana, which is a county property under Wayne Township, by the way, and Wayne County is where we're from. So, and then the 4393 State Route 35 North. So I go down to Robin Moore's at Title Abstracts of Richmond. And by the way, Title Abstracts of Richmond, the president is Ron Cross. He is a county attorney. It is housed with the law firm Boston Beaver, Keihn and Cross. I believe Mr. Boston or Mr. Beaver 1 are the DOJ's appointed private bankruptcy official. And then, so they're involved because there's bankruptcy fraud going on. That's what's taking it up into the federal level. Anyway, they're housed inside of Abstracts Title of Richmond. That's hooked on to U.S. Bank, formerly known as Star Bank, via a skywalk. And that is a foreclosing bank in this instance because they got something going on with Deutsche Bank National Association, now known as Trustee, and Deutsche Bank National Association, or Deutsche Bank of America is the new name they have going on now because they're still running the mill, from what I've seen. So I write here what was contained in the crook file. That's what I call Tim Moore's file he sent to Rachel by mistake, because I'm sure he wouldn't have on purpose for certain. And the original, authentic originals have been offered via photo scanned images, because I sent them in disk, and everyone's had those, and that we've invited for people to see what I just showed you on. We've invited them to. No one wants to see the actual authentic originals. They want to keep passing off fake mortgages and loans inside the judicial, even knowing the facts that there are authentic originals, and they've been submitted yet ignored to date. So just letting you know that that's not normal. That doesn't show fairness or impartiality in any way, shape, or form. And as a matter of fact, there's actual trickery going on, and I can prove it. But let me move on. So the 3 separate properties, addresses and owner of records, 3 separate properties. Rachel was told she was buying a house from Paul Stickle of Stickle Properties, LLC. She didn't know that the house was sitting under the property cards under Charles and Annette Scott. the 422 Randolph Street to 10,007 State Route 38 in Greens Fork, the county property was under a Leslie K. or Karen Leslie Lane Mahaffey. And I think there was an older guy named Gerald Mahaffey or Harold Mahaffey, and he passed away. And reportedly it was a Jerry Mahaffey at that 10,007. Now at the 4393, that was owned by Tony Bond. So reportedly. But yet Paul Stickle and various others were involved behind the scenes and said they owned them. So I went down to the land records office after I went in to talk to Title Abstracts of Richmond and showed her the fake mortgage affidavit and contingency on the back of a bug inspection control. And she said, well, you know, this is normal. I said, how is it normal for someone who's never been married to have an affidavit stating something about the property and the interest and amount and then about the children? How would that be normal? And it's on the back of bug inspection pest control reports, because remember, Tim Moore, I am alleging, and it has been unanswered. It's not answered to date. They were named and this evidence was submitted, and they can't answer it because it's the truth. It's their own documents. And they've been invited. Anyone that wants to see them, the other opposing attorneys, anyone, I sent them to them photocopied, but they want to just ignore them as if they're not there. Well, there's a reason for that. It's because they involve judicial officials. So, let me get down into this more. I hope I didn't get off track too badly, because I'm trying to recite something that would require writing a book. So anyway, I went down Title Abstracts of Richmond, got no action. Rachel had to file an answer by October the 20th, 2012 was the deadline. She filed an answer that I prepared. Now, it's interesting, the file stamp on that takes it back to 12/28/2012. The file stamp, the actual file stamp, Rachel's counter, answers, admissions and denials, and counter to what they had said was actually file stamped to 12/28/2012 by, I would assume, a clerk at the courthouse in the clerk of courts. So, tell about the correspondences they did. Okay. Title company, people talk, Robin Moore, have notes and emails. Okay. So, what was contained in the crook file, I basically just told you. There's more, but what was contained in there, I have. And I'll show you. I have what I'm about to talk about. There's a six-page summary, but inside here are the exhibits in their entirety. Those have been submitted and ignored as well. However, this shows what happened, what I'm about to tell you about, in a chronological order, and what I just stated, and it's already on paper. So, after I talked to Robin Moore at Title Abstracts of Richmond, I looked into that company as well. Ron Cross, the county attorney, is the CEO. Walt Scheidester, the city attorney, has also been involved with taking the identity of a young couple and a young couple while they were in another country, even though he was informed of this and even though he knew that they were renters and renters only. He was caught in the nick of time attempting to do some of the same things that I'm alleging have happened here on this property, because it concerns some dead folks' trusts. Now, this is the thing. The people on the outside that bought their homes, they don't know about the dead folks' trust, because they're running this trust behind the scenes. And they're running it with things like birth certificates and social security cards and emancipating minors and changing the minor's last name, the child. Let's say mom buys a house and legal real estate agent, loan officer they're working with needs the taxes for that person, and then they get the children's socials. And you see evidence of 3 different properties, 9 different loans, 3 different purchase agreements with promissory notes perfected and paid by the signator, Rachelleditty, with Tim Orr as a witness and the city of Richmond, Indiana, named inside the promissory note. That's a high road promissory note. That goes to the high road bank, and that's just my terminology anyway. That goes to the Federal Reserve or the big bank. It could go to the Bank of London, because when she reportedly bought this home, this one home, there's a mortgage that is on file at the Land Records Office, and in that mortgage it states she's to make her first payment to P.O. Box, I think it's 809 or 908. It's in the mortgage. That belonged to Brandon Allen of DTZ Barney in the UK. So that first payment went straight out away. And another thing that I wanted to make clear, I have a detailed knowledge of Metropolitan Life Insurance Company and the demutualization that occurred back in 1999. When I noticed the backdating of the Alta policies, it reminded me of money lost under some stocks in what was called a sell-buy program, or buyer and purchaser, seller purchaser program it was back then. But they wanted to demutualize, and when they demutualized, they put a little trust up in Rhode Island, and they ended up with a lot of stockholder lawsuits on the stock side. They got into it affected pension funds and things like that. Well, what they didn't state to anybody is they were going to do what's called the sell-buy program that started and was a brainchild of Metropolitan Life Insurance. These are the people who testified at Metropolitan Life Insurance Company demutualization. Around the beginning of 2000, Mr. Ben Moshe for Metropolitan Life Insurance Company, another person for the same company, Goldman Sachs executive, and I might have been McLean Brothers, I'm not sure on that, but it's in the testimony. They testified that they were going to start this program and that they were going to demutualize, and they were going to do conversion. They were going to, hold on, let me think exactly what they testified to. They were going to commit the act of conversion. They were going to do it takings by committing the act of conversion. So, when you make the buyer the owner prematurely on an Alta policy that's got a pre-designed form out to go in line with these cappers and these TIF funds and things that are going on in these municipalities, or you can order these forms, let's say in 2008 from Alta, but they can take you back to the year 2005 within the parentheses. That's a problem. So it was backdated to February 5th, effective February 5th, 2006. Rachel bought the home. She bought the home reportedly March 14th, 2008. So I see on one of the completed parts of this invoice, because they are completed behind the scenes. That's in the file. They have completed it. So they gave Paul Stickle of Stickle Properties, they vested the land interest to him on 2/12/2008. Now he was a reported owner. So that leads me to believe, well, maybe the property was never owned by him. So I go down to the Land Records Office, and I'm looking around, and I'm gathering up all the mortgages that I can find from the early days and all the deeds and putting them on these 3 properties and getting that information. And I'm going into the plat room, checking that information as well. And I go in the plat room, and I notice that the years, tax years 2005 and 6, sometimes 2003, 2005 and 6, 2009, 2010, the tax records or any record of them are missing. They're not in the notebooks or anything, and the clerk back in the plat room couldn't help me. She acted like she didn't act very professional. But there was a lady in there. I thought she worked there, and I told her, I said, I'm trying to research this Paul Stickle and see if he recorded that he owned this property at all. And the lady said, who did you say your daughter bought that home from? I said, Paul Stickle. And I said, yep, and it looks like they got hold of my grandson's identities. Well, this lady, who was later identified to me by Deborah Rash, the deputy recorder, as Debbie Lawson. She was a veteran employee of Freedom Title Company. She looked at me and she goes, I'm going to help her. I'm sick of these bastards. And the girl in the corner goes, I've already helped her. She goes, no, I don't care. I'm going to help her. is what she told me. She said, remember this Deborah Lawson, remember this. I'm doing what's called an anchor date search. And she went over to a corner computer. She pulled up this 3 to 4 page paper, and it showed that the property that Rachel reportedly bought, 422 Randolph Street, was tied in an undisclosed land contract to a 938 South 17th Street, Richmond, Indiana. Also, titled over to Annette and Charles Scott, though not at the time. It was showing up under a Patricia White. So they're backdating this scam here I'm telling you about, and I have proof of that as well that I will have to explain in paper, because it's a separate issue, and I'd really just to go ahead and explain it on paper because it's going elsewhere. So here comes the fourth property. We got the 422 Randolph Street. We got the 10,007 county property. We got the 4393 Highway 35. And then we got the undisclosed sheriff's deed to Paul Stickle, because no one knew about the sheriff's deed. And then we've got an undisclosed land contract tying it to 938 South 17th Street, which is lot 14 of Richland Plat. Remember, Rachel's legal description is lot 154. It's going to be important. So when I found that fourth property, I went and pulled all the taxes and various things, the tax records. At that time I did, pulled the taxes for the prior years. I knew something was going on with taxes. And that would lead a reasonable person to believe that might be what all the smaller loans were about, so that they could pay a tax obligation they might have under, using her signature. So, and I need to think about this and explain it right at this point. She pulled that anchor date search. I questioned it, what was real or not real at this point, because I couldn't find Paul Stickle's name entering his property transactions into the books until the lady, who wasn't very helpful at one point, told me, oh yeah, he sold so many and did so much around here. I just let him fill it out in the front. So it was not in chronological order, and it looked like it had been done in 2009. So I get the 938 South 17th. I look at the date that the 422 Randolph Street went into when these reported people, Charles and Annette Scott, who are not Charles and Annette Scott at all. I know who they are. Charles Scott is Chuck Hyde. The attorney wanted for 29 counts of bankruptcy, and it can be proven in many ways, but it can be proven. Anyway, this Charles and Annette Scott reportedly owned 422 Randolph Street, and they bought it, or became obligated under it, March 13th, 2003. Now, Rachel had her check made out for the certified funds made out for March 13th, 2008, to pay to the Order of Title Abstracts of Richmond, but she wasn't able to close till March 14th. So what basically happened here was she took on an obligation, and the obligation behind the scenes, and I'll explain that in a minute, but let me write that down, because I do want to explain the importance of that. Okay. In around October 2012 and up until January 2013, we attempted to report stolen identities to the Richmond Police Department. I was actually viewed and saw a memo from reportedly, the name was Becky Spellman, on not taking identity theft reports. Also, when we were finally able, with the help of Sheriff Laura Roberts, to do an identity fraud report, that is what she recommended we do. She said they can't not take your identity report, identity fraud report, and I said they wouldn't take it. I'm telling you. So Sheriff Laura Roberts called them and helped out with that. So we were trying to report the identity stolen, and we. So let me go on, because I'm getting out of the chronological order. I apologize. I went ahead and checked to see if that sheriff's deed had actually advertised in the paper by going to the library. And I remembered that I needed to get some things from there as well. But I remembered there was, while I was at the library, that and I checked it out, and it did advertise in the paper as being at being a property at a sheriff's deed, or it was going to be sheriff deeded off, or be the product, be a property sold at a sheriff's sale. So that was advertised, so everything was good there. And I remembered in 2003 that the county had written a tax list, delinquent taxpayers, and they reportedly retracted it, but I was finding evidence in the records of Social Security numbers and parentheses and everything. So I wanted to make sure that they had retracted it like I thought, because my husband and myself, the Social Security number that's the government issued property was right out in the open for everybody to see, but it was hidden in parentheses. And that's been that way on a few people. So I ended up calling Laura Roberts, and I said, whenever this, I said, because I just wanted to make sure it was a true sheriff's deed. I told her what had happened, and that it looked like my daughter's house was tied to another property, and this Paul Stickle was involved. And she said, this is just a conversation, so this isn't, this is hearsay basically in this statement, this part is. She basically conveyed the idea that she knew all about Paul Stickle and what he was doing, and she never could understand why he never got in trouble, and nobody ever got him in trouble. And she's not the only one, this Sheriff Laura Roberts. There's people over at the land records, there's people at the city building. Everyone wonders why he never got in trouble. But his girlfriend certainly did. And he was married at the time, but his girlfriend certainly did get in trouble for the fraud. So it makes you wonder how much officials knew around here, because they sure did sell her down the river. And she deserved it probably, because she did commit the fraud. So